civilizations than just Atlantis.
I know. We just don't know any of them.
True.
Can you, I know this is difficult. Give me a number of the number of civilizations that survived and died. I mean, it grew up and died on the earth. It doesn't have to be exact, ballpark number.
Oh, but there's been probably at least a dozen, maybe more.
Oh,
Not all of which were as advanced as Atlantis. Some were more advanced.
it's a lot less than I thought. I thought we'd like 1,000.
Well, when you consider that the Earth itself had to evolve through a lot of
Events
yeah,
had to grow.
right. And as a planet, it wasn't always conducive to the growth of civilization.
Yes, I understand that based on some history I've
Yeah.
read and listened to.
But some of these advanced civilizations were influenced by either other concurrent civilizations and or extraterrestrials, as you call them. Terra meaning Earth.
There exists in Ohio, in the United States, a mound shaped like a serpent.
Mm-hmm.
What is its significance?
It's significant to those who built it.
Why? What was their belief structure when they built it?
It's a complex answer because they were very aware of the importance of serpents in their own existence. It has to do somewhat with their knowledge as it had deteriorated somewhat from their original, what they knew, what they had been taught by extraterrestrials. It deteriorated to where they thought of those beings, the ETs, as gods, or at least godlike. And then they began to associate them with the stars. Constellations, you call them.
Yes.
And they noticed that some of them formed a sort of a serpent. And there were many constellations that seemed to have a lot of curves in them. So they began to value those serpents, or any serpent. And they believed that they were honoring their gods, or the godlike beings, who, by the way, did have a slight reptilian appearance, which just added to their belief that by building the mound in the shape of a serpent would give honor to the gods, would reflect their knowledge of astronomy as it was at the time that they built them. And they did include, at the base of the mounds, they did include the mound, I should have said. I think I put a plural on there.
You did.
Sorry. One mound, it just is serpent-shaped. And they used it for burial of their chiefs and their highly valued members, like the healers and even musicians. And they would, if they had value, if they gave value to artifacts, jewelry, instruments, things, they buried those with the people that they valued after they passed. And they believed that by being underneath the serpent, it helped them, these people, to make their way into the heavens to be with their gods. But as they built the mound, it took a lot of time and effort, in your way of thinking. And they began to just build the mound. They stopped burying artifacts and people, and they just thought of it as more of, see, we haven't forgotten you, gods. And then,
But the gods had forgotten them.
not really.
No? Okay.
No. But the time that the gods, the so-called gods, the ETs, had done what they had come to do. They imparted knowledge. And they were aware that it was deteriorating as the generations went on, but that was okay. The mound was still there. There was something still within those people to cause them to complete the mound and revere it, because even when all knowledge was lost, they still believed that mound, they just believed basically that having that mound and revering the mound itself and in its serpent form, which was difficult for them to maintain after a while. But there were those who were a little more enlightened, retaining a little more of the knowledge, who directed them to finish it in such a way that it wouldn't deteriorate. It would not, even though the people's knowledge and abilities were deteriorating. That is the way of the early humans. And even, shall I say, you, current human beings. Although there are those who are rediscovering some of this information, they're in awe that all this knowledge, all this information, all these abilities were had by ancient civilizations all over your planet, all over Gaia. And the excitement of rediscovering it is carrying a lot of the general enlightenment of humanity into the next phase. But I'm getting off point. You wondered about the serpent mound, and now you know.
So if they lost sight of putting their leaders and stuff underground, under the mound, I can't say that word very well. I take it then there's at a certain point, so to speak, that there will be no more leaders underneath the mound. It'll just be all what it is they built.
Yes, and they did not bury their dead in the mound any longer. Maybe I wasn't clear on that.
No, you were. I'm just
okay.
Making sure I understand where you're coming from.
Yes.
So, which end of the mound started first?
The head.
The head?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any significance to the head?
Well, is there significance to yours? But I would like to bring up something that in your society, maybe not so much now in the Western world, so to speak, There are still some countries, some civilizations, cultures
There you go.
on your planet that do this when they feel the need. But to kill a snake, you chop off its head, right? So these people began construction of the head first and gradually worked on the body and built the head up some more and more on the body. You know, they just felt the head was the most important, but the body was vital as well. That's
Okay. So those portions of the mound that are closest to the head will be the ones where the things are buried, be they people, objects, leaders, whoever.
leaders or people.
Oh, yeah,
But actually, it was through the whole. Let me explain. The head was constructed first as there was construction going on the rest of it, and then it was
Oh.
gradually built up to the height it is now.
okay.
The body was. But they did manage to finish the head first, even while some of these additional structures were going up.
Okay. That is not the way I was thinking of the construction.
Okay.
I was thinking of it being from head to tail.
You mean like head, little bit, little bit, little
Yeah.
bit, little. Oh,
But I wasn't thinking of in layers.
layers. That's
Okay.
a good word. Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Who or what were the mound builders? And did they have influence from any place else?
Influence from their slightly reptilian ETs.
I'm talking about worldwide, not just in America. Because there's mounds all over the world.
Mm-hmm. And it's pretty much in the beginning, indigenous peoples, after the explosion of humanity's growth and they moved out and around, of course, there were tales, remembrances from wherever they started, and then as they moved out, and then more of them moved out farther, as you know. Many tales of ET assistance, primarily ET assistance, is what enabled them to then travel and influence each other. But mounds were built primarily by the earlier indigenous peoples who had after humanity had spread across the globe, actually all these things kind of, and not just because everything is now, but these things I'm going to tell you didn't happen like first humanity spread out across the world, and then they started building up their individual cultures and civilizations. And then they started remembering, oh, well, we used to do this and that. No, it was gradual, and then there was trade, and then there wasn't trade, and then there was here, and then...
Be careful, you're getting close to the camera.
Oops. Thank you for the warning.
Sure.
So it is true that many mounds were built by early Homo sapiens sapiens, but there are even older mounds built by earlier hominids, earlier humans particularly. Hominins, I should say, because that's when they started wanting to do more to recognize their leaders and their influencers, the ETs. Mostly that, and to reflect what they see in the heavens at night, even during the day, the sun, planets, clouds. I'm trying to generalize, but they did, as your linear time went on and there was evolution, they did get more culturally centered, and their mounds reflected that, except for the few places where trade was developing. But it was a gradual evolutionary process. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So did they migrate, so to speak, or the evolutionary process, or their design, building, whatever, cultural influence, whatever it is, did that progress from mounds into step pyramids and then into pyramids?
Not really. Pyramids were another influence of the later ET influences.
Does that include the step pyramids?
Yes.
So I take it the step pyramids were some of the first ones they attempted to construct.
As compared to the Egyptian pyramids, oh,
Yes.
most definitely, yes.
Hi, Haisha.
It also had a lot to do with, when you think about it, step pyramids are more likely to be found in the more humid climates. Think about it. They didn't have enough stone, solid stone, to build anything smoother. They had to construct those pyramids out of the stones that they had, smaller stones and mud and dirt and even grass to help. Instead of mortar, grass would grow in the cracks and help to hold things together. And so steps were more practical. Step pyramids were more practical because they didn't have the materials to build them more solidly.
Several locations around the world, archaeologists have found skeletons with elongated skulls. Where did those skulls originate, or those beings originate?
Those particular beings originated, they were very human-like, however, with the skulls. I'm not getting the answer as to which, but they began. They were a group of ETs. That word is hard to say, extraterrestrials. No wonder your own people have trouble saying it. Anyway, there was a group of ETs came to Earth, thousands of years ago. Not necessarily to seed humanity, but to live and work and assist a certain group of humans who were just beginning their evolution, basically. And they were of one of the groups that it didn't totally take, shall we say. It was a failed experiment.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense based on the book I'm currently reading.
But your archaeologists don't want to have
No,
anything to do with
they
that.
don't.
But the elongated heads belong to the beings who lived amongst the early humans that they thought they were attempting to help. But it wasn't the way it was supposed to be necessarily. Not that it was bad, but it just didn't work out the way they thought, or the way the ETs thought it would, or even the early humans that they were part of.
What didn't work out?
The experiment, the
ET experiment, or the experiment between the early humans and the ETs?
well, the experiment was actually from the ETs,
Okay.
but the early humans, those ETs were trying to bring things out of and for those early humans that it was too much too soon. Those humans were not ready.
Okay.
So the experiment ultimately failed, and the ETs died out. The early humans, many of them in that group died out, but many more were able to go out and mingle with other groups of early humans and, blend their
So when these
physiology.
aliens arrived, were they just dropped off?
They arrived in a ship.
But that's mean, did the ship land, leave them off, and then exit again? Or did some of them survive and leave?
There were some who stayed on the ship, and it's funny how you would describe it as being dropped off at the corner of
Yep.
these two intersections. No,
Yep.
but
There's the
it's
Nazca lines are pointing where we need to go.
not quite. Anyway,
I know.
but it was more of the ships travel in such a way that I'm not going to divulge because I don't fully understand it.
Just a quick
Anyway.
one word of how they did. Did they fold time, fold space? Did they do as Bashar's people do, just think about it and they're there?
That's pretty much it.
Okay, that's
And then the
enough.
ones who were going to do the mingling with human beings, with the early humans, stayed, and the others in the ship left
Okay.
because it was an experiment. You don't
So-
always stick around.
Well, so in a way, you could say the aliens had an outpost here.
Oh, there were
in a way.
many
Yes.
types of what you might call an outpost, but they were
There
more like
hundreds.
well, they were what?
Hundreds of them.
Oh, man, maybe not hundreds, but more like colonies.
Well,
Colonies of civilizations. Some worked, some didn't.
okay. I'll leave it at that.
And it depended on which ETs what they wanted to accomplish. Because there were a number of quite a few different ETs coming to Earth to see what they could do. And they would experiment and it didn't work. or many experimented and ended up seeding human civilizations.
Because experiment worked.
And the experiment worked, and they grew. So the ETs kind of left, okay, this is good. And then humans being what they are, things happened. And a lot of that, say, technology, that knowledge would have therefore been lost. Maybe tiny pockets of humans remembered some of it, and it has come down through your physical linear history as mythology, as who the gods were and who they were not, and what happened. And yeah, human beings are good at twisting all kinds of stuff, but they had help twisting it from some of the ETs that, you know, not everybody is perfect. And even ETs who were trying to help humanity grow, there were some of them that made mistakes, and there were some that, for whatever reason, their desires went askew. So that didn't help the humans much. And I mean, you know, many variables.
Okay, in the last session, I had asked, or maybe the session before that, if you could find more information out about what the Nazca lines represent. How was your quest on that?
The Nazca lines were originally put there as markers, shall we say, for any extraterrestrial group to know there was something going on there. And like I said, then things kind of went, as you say, went south or sideways or whatever. And much knowledge was lost. However, the peoples tried making more of those lines based on the little bit of knowledge they still had to try to bring those particular ETs back. And at that point, it was decided not to do that, not to come back.
Okay.
So that's why some of the lines don't quite have the same intensity, shall we say?
That's a good word.
As some of the others, because as time went on, this group of humans forgot exactly what they had to do, or how it was supposed to work, or what, you know, just God's come back. And as time went on, more and more of that knowledge was lost, and they ended up, what are we doing? Squiggly lines here, whatever. You know, so there are degrees of the word potency comes to mind.
Okay.
Of all the pictures, there are more to discover.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it started out to be an amazing thing, and it ended up being a pitiful thing.
A what?
Pitiful.
Oh.
Pitiful.
So in other words, your answer to the question is no. I have no further information as to what they mean. Or the meaning behind individual.
Right.
Pictures.
That's not for me to divulge, but to explain kind of what they are and why, that I could do. And did. I hope I did that to your satisfaction.
Considering space travel by Earthlings, Are we the first inhabitants of Earth that have ventured beyond our planet
No.
natively?
Natively? What is
Meaning, not including ETs, not going with ETs,
that? Oh,
but on our own designed ships.
no. There were civilizations who wanted to do that. They never quite got it down.
Never got the technology right.
Right. And
Okay.
ETs weren't going to just hand it to them.
Yeah,
So,
'cause we've been doing this for since the 40s in one form or another.
attempting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's when the journey started. It was in the 40s. At least,
In this era
yeah,
of
in this era,
civilization.
yes.
Yeah.
Back in session 5, Thane mentioned that there had been about a dozen civilizations that developed on Earth and then died out. Can you give us some of their names or centers of locations, or maybe the time frame in which they survived?
That's not really necessary. You already know the answer to that.
I don't know a dozen of them, though.
Well, when you asked the question or you stated that it was more of a possibility there could be about a dozen. There might be more,
Mm-hmm.
but it's up to your, not us, but to others.
Okay.
To,
I understand.
to delineate. I mean, it's happened if you learn from other persons or channelers or beings about different civilizations on Earth. The point is that in your linear time, your experts are beginning to realize that there have been many greater than your own civilizations that have risen and fallen. Atlantis is one of them, as you know. That's the most popular one right now. But there have been others.
Have there been any global civilizations the size of the one we have today that have failed in the past?
Atlantis,
It was global.
yes.
Okay.
Everybody thinks of it as just being in one spot, but they did spread out around the globe.
Okay.
And there were others. When I mentioned there were some that were billions of years old. Well, a couple billion. That rose and fell.
Okay. Those we'll probably never know about from geological results.
There's been some, shall we say, artifacts, as a general term, that are intriguing to archaeologists and
Yes.
others.
I remember some of those.
Yeah, but there's no definitive description of who or what or how large or anything.